Selamat datang semua. Sorry for the little bit of delay there, but thank you all for coming today on a beautiful Saturday morning. So first of all, I'm Jade. I'm the president for AYA Victoria, the Australia-Indonesia Youth Association, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. So today's session is all about starting a business in Victoria and Tasmania, and part 2 of this business webinar. So just for some housekeeping for today, this meeting will be recorded and uploaded on Conjan's YouTube channel. So if you do miss half of it, feel free to go on it and check it out. And any questions you want for our speakers today, I'd kindly ask you to post them in the chat at the bottom, just so there's a lot of people on this call. It will minimize the hecticness. There also will be a survey in the chat box later today, and it'll be really great if you could fill that out during or after this webinar. Just for the time management for today, we're going to have a 20-minute presentation from Peter, and then 10 minutes dedicated afterwards for any questions for Peter. And then we have Emmanuel for 20 minutes presentation, and then 10 minutes for questions. So just for some background for our speakers today, we are joined by Emmanuel and Peter. Peter is the CEO of Katama Global and also the chair of AIBC Tasmania. And he has spent nearly 30 years living and working in Southeast Asia, most of it in Indonesia. And he has held senior management positions and advisory roles in a range of Indonesian businesses. In addition to that, he is currently the Vice President of the Indonesia Australian Business Council in Jogja, and is active in promoting opportunities between Australia and Indonesian business. Many of his specialties include Indonesian business, relations and management, Asian business, mergers and acquisitions, strategic planning, planning and manufacturing, and supply management, import, export, media sales, and marketing. We are also joined by Emmanuel, and he is currently the Managing Director of Accolade Coaching and one of the committee members for AIBC Victoria. He's the owner and founder of Accolade Coaching, and he's established in 2012 to help small businesses with their high-level business strategy. He's also part of 2 well-known global strategy brands, namely Blue Ocean Strategy and Strategizer. In Australia, Emmanuel is one of 7 people who was the registered consultant under the banner of Blue Ocean Strategy Australia. He is also one of just over 100 people worldwide trained by Alexander Osterwalder himself, which made up the Strategizer Global Coaching Network. And lastly, he owns a podcast channel called Biz Talk with Emmanuel, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Heart Radio. So now I'd like to invite Peter Craven to deliver his presentation today. Sorry.
Jade, yes.
Maaf, there's our opening remarks by our important Pak Conchoro. Silakan, maaf.
Jade, thank you very much. You have so wonderful and beautiful voice as a moderator. Until you forgot myself that I have a turn to open the program. That's fine anyway. I enjoy your voice. Thank you very much, Jade. First of all, forgive me for not using the background side here, because I'm using another computer right now. That's not my own computer. So I don't find there in my computer right now with that background information in the program. And Pak Peter Craven and Pak Emmanuel Setiawan, thank you a lot for coming. I also see here Pak Harry from BDOS. I know Pak Harry is going to have another program, this very important program also today. They call it, what do you call it? Pelepasan ekspor something. That will be opened by our president, the President of Republic Indonesia, Pak Jokowi. So congratulations, Pak Harry. But for the time being, I also appreciate that you also attend these programs. And then I hope that everybody is okay right now. the weather outside is very beautiful. Unfortunately, we don't have any what do you call, not right, but for the time being it's very limitation with the lockdown. So thanks for the things we have this program arranged by Muniro and friends with regard to the business coaching. Pak Peter Craven and Pak Emmanuel Setiawan, thank you again. So Pak Peter Craven is the founder and principal of Katama Global, as well as he is also chair of the Australia Indonesia Business Council chapter Tasmania. And then Pak Emmanuel himself is a managing director of the Acolyte Coaching, as well as he is a committee member of the Australia Indonesia Business Council chapter Victoria. So we have two persons coming from the two chapters of the AIBC. I thank you very much. Jet Lee, again, thank you very much. You are the president of the Australia Indonesia Youth Associations. I appreciate very much. And then also our future business people. Ladies and gentlemen, selamat pagi. Very good morning. Welcome to the third week of our business coaching right now. So hopefully everyone is doing well. Yes, you know, it's very unfortunate that the lockdown has been extended for a while. But I believe with our common efforts right now and by the following of the Victorian governments, things will get better and better. We can meet in person later on. On that note, in a couple of days, we will celebrate our 76th Independence Day of the Republic of Indonesia. But since we are in the middle of lockdown, of course, like what I mentioned to some people now, we are preparing now, the Consul General preparing everything for virtual programs for the 17th of August. Hopefully, you can later on join us through our consulate's YouTube channel. We are going to have the program, and this year we can only celebrate, of course, by virtual. Hopefully next year, next year everything will be okay, and if the circumstances allow, permit, we can meet and celebrate in persons. Now we turn about our business today. This is about business coaching today. It's always great to see some familiar faces here again. Thank you for being here, sharing with us. Again, Pak Peter, Pak Emmanuel, it's a pleasure for me to have both of you, and I learned a lot. We have met once, Pak Peter and Pak Odi, but I learned a lot from them. So I remember that's my first week when I came in Melbourne. So that was still in June, the end of June, I guess, on the 1st of July. And then I believe we will get many insight and experiences from both of them. I would also like to extend my appreciations to our moderator, Jed. Again, Jed, you are young people, have always been an important part of our plans and our activities. Last week, we heard from our speakers about how to establish business. I remember it was last week Pak Heri himself and import relating regulations. Today, our panels will cover more and how we can achieve our goals in establishing business. If I can draw an analogy, today's subject like when we are making, we are making a detailed trip plan to a certain destinations, what we are going to prepare, how long we are going to take, and how we get there, and what we are going to do with our people in our team, or also the people that we are going to meet along the way, and so on and so on. So Pak Peter has a dozens years of experiences living and doing business in Indonesia. And he is the right person to tell us business ethics, as well as how to market product, building networking between Indonesia and Australia. He has the knowledge of both Indonesian and Australian societies. Many business experts mention the importance of understanding the market, and they remind how not understanding relevant culture can ruin our business if it is not built very well. So lack of understanding leads us to developing weak strategies, some of which may even be offensive to our prospective market. And now we have our common thread between the subject delivered by Pak Peter and Pak Emmanuel. When Pak Peter will give us a strong understanding, Pak Emmanuel will guide us on how to build some strategies, solid strategies, based on that strong understanding. Pak Emmanuel, as a professional business coaching, he will share with us about business model and innovations. Your business plan for making a profit, the rationale on how your business creates, delivers, and of course, captures values. In closing, I would like once again to thank you to you all, the participants, the resource persons, the moderator, of course, my team from the Consulate General, Munirah and friends. Thank you very much. Keep healthy, keep safe, and obey everything from the government, local government. Patuhi semua protokol kesehatan. With that, Jade, turning it over to you again. Thank you very much, Jade. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those remarks, Pak Kunchoro. Sorry, I forgot about you. Okay, so now we would like to invite Peter to deliver your presentation. On to you, Peter.
Thank you, Jade. Pak Kunchoro, Pak Konjen, Ibu Muni, and the team from KJRE, Pak Emmanuel. Selamat pagi semua, and welcome to my presentation. For those that don't know me, I am an Australian, but I've lived most of my life in Indonesia. Not 1,000 years, Pak Kunchoro, but it's still quite a significant part, and Indonesia is still a big part of my life, even though during the COVID restrictions, we can't travel back and forth, but we maintain contact like we are now through online activities. And so I would like to share some of those aspects and some of those knowledges that that have come through. I'm just trying to see with the screen. Has everybody got me in the screen, or am I seeing also a virtual background screen? Jade,
Peter, I'm sorry if you allow me. Pak Emmanuel also, I'm really sorry that I have to join some other program. So I will leave you with Munirah and the team. But again, I thank you very much, and I apologize for not being with you in the whole programs.
Thank you, Pak Kunchoro.
Thank you, Pak Peter,
Pak
Pak Emmanuel.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much.
Boleh saya minta dulu Pak Konjen jangan pergi dulu. Please, we would like to have a family photo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Family photo.
Family photo.
Yeah. Okay.
That's one way to say it. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Lukman, maybe you can.
I think Pak Peter need to stop sharing first. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Dear all participants, please be ready. Within 5 seconds, I will take a photograph of us. Please make sure the camera is on. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Once again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you then.
Thank you, Pak.
Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye.
So boleh saya mulai lagi kan? So selamat pagi semua. Thank you very much for your time. So today, I understand that everybody's been doing this program for a number of weeks, and that you've covered aspects around ISEPA and what that means, some of the aspects about procurement in Indonesia and the regulations about importing and exporting. Which is great. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call the foundation, which is about how to build those business links and more importantly, in the products and services that you may be looking about to do business in Australia, about building that foundation. I started doing export many, many years ago when I was in Australia with my family business. And about 20 years ago, I was invited to help develop an export company out of Yogyakarta. And that export company was a very small company, but the founder was also Australian. And he had designed and developed ways for developing Indonesian handicraft to become homewares. That company was named PT Out of Asia. And when I joined, it was a very small business, but we had massive opportunities. And what we did was we modified and designed and created products designed around market research and about what global markets wanted. Over those 5 years, our turnover increased 10 times. And PT Out of Asia was one of the largest exporters, and still is, in Indonesia for home accessories. But the story also continued that during around 2010, the market changed. And a lot of the home accessories went to processed products such as glass and metals and hard objects, which were not the strengths of Indonesia. So this presentation I'm doing is talking about how market research and how developing your products is vitally important to the success of your business. So I'm just going to share my screen. Jade, can you confirm that you're seeing this?
Yep, it's all there.
So my presentation is aptly titled, whoops, the why, the who, the what, the how, and the when. And this is essentially about building the foundation of your business. Out of all the things that I've been doing, currently I have an import company, which is importing Indonesian home accessories, but primarily furniture. And that company is Nova Solo. It's a company that I also managed and worked with the partners in Solo in Indonesia for about 6 years before we started bringing the products to Australia. And I've made a little bit of a case study about our business model, and the strategic planning that went around it a little later in my presentation. We also created an e-commerce site called I Wanna Go Home. And so that now is the focal point for a lot of our sales and development here in Australia of selling Indonesian furniture into the Australian market. The other company that I developed was a company called Confresh. Now, at the moment, that's an Australian export company selling fresh produce to primarily global markets, but in Indonesia as well. But the story about that company was that it was actually importing paper coffee cups from Indonesia for many years. And again, we had a very good market strategy. We had a good opportunity. However, slight changes in the exchange rate meant that our products were no longer competitive. So these are some of the areas that I'm going to highlight in my presentation about how market research and keeping your links is vitally important to keep your product and business alive. However, during the course of business, there are things you're going to face, and you're going to have to do what we call pivoting. And we actually pivoted this company from an import company to an export company. Lastly, my initial areas of importation was around industrial machinery. So that's where I learned a lot about importing products into Australia. So my experiences cover around manufacturing. So I manufactured a lot of products out of Indonesia and exported them globally. We then pivoted and started working with import. We created a wholesale business here in Australia. We actually created a retail business, which we found wasn't as viable as what we expected, which we closed. And then we developed a very successful e-commerce business. So very quickly, when we talk about developing your business from a startup, these are some of the reasons why startups fail. It doesn't matter whether you're importing products or whether you are developing IT products or apps. These are pretty well standard across the world. Number one, and a lot of these are due to the fact that improper market research was done in the first place. The number one killer is for most businesses is what we call cash flow or lack of. And a lot of cash flow is due to the fact that over expectations on sales or over optimism on particular products don't eventuate. A lot of costs mount up, the revenue doesn't come in, people run out of money, and then they close up. Another big killer is the fact that the market just isn't there for that product. And that is, again, due to the fact that people are not seeing properly how their product or their service is going to be applied here in Australia. It's all very nice that people have the assumptions and you think that it's going to be done. But the reality of the fact is that when you start importing products and you are mounting up a lot of costs and your sales don't work, this is not a time to find out that the market doesn't need your product. So out of all of those reasons for startup failures, probably about 50% are due to lack of proper market research at the start. And I would always suggest that when people are looking at importing products, the market research comes before you do any business planning. So from Malcolm Forbes, the best vision is insight. And it's so true. You know, looking to what the future is by understanding what the current situation today is. So market research. I'm sure all of you have done some aspects of market research in your lives before. It's not rocket science. There are specific companies that can do that for you, but you will end up spending a lot of money or investing a lot of money in that. And there's a lot of things that you can do yourselves to do that. So essentially, market research is a process of determining how viable your product or your service actually is. Firstly, we want to check on industry trends. Now, as I pointed out, at one time we we were exporting Indonesian accessories, and the products were made from natural materials. But very quickly, the market turned. So where industry trends are working, you do not want to be bringing in natural products, naturally made products, when the market is looking for manufactured products. You need to also then have a look when you're doing your market research about what the competitors are doing. And this is very easy nowadays because there are so many resources and e-commerce sites online. You can see what people are selling their products are, what their product prices are, and what they're selling online. So you can actually see quite clearly what opportunities there are in the marketplace. Thirdly, you need to look, and this is what I always do, is who is my customer? Who is my ideal customer? Who is the customer that I'm targeting to? Intermediary, maybe through a wholesale or a retail process, but at the end of the day, who's the ultimate customer of these products, and what do they want? And then finally, some of the secondary market research that you can do are through, say, social media, Facebook market, a lot of places there that people are selling products on and promoting their services. The last one, online tools for market analysis. There are a lot of services now online. Typically, Google Analytics would be one where you can then look and determine and find out information about product sectors, about customer bases. So these are all great tools that you can use to determine where your market product is targeted. Essentially, what you're trying to do is to determine what your unique selling proposition is. So what sets you apart from the competition, and more importantly, you need to pinpoint exactly what your product or what your service is going to do. The old adage, what works in Indonesia doesn't necessarily work in Australia, and vice versa. What works in Australia won't work necessarily in Indonesia. So you really do need to be determining how this is done. And in a case study, I'll show you also some of the ways of doing that. So 10 years ago, when we were in Jogja, my partner and I determined that we needed to create a new process or a new furniture line, essentially. And what we did was we looked at the global market, and we determined from there some specific designs that we felt that would work closely in Europe, in America, and particularly in Australia. So before we started bringing the product to Australia, we went and approached many of the furniture retailers, and we talked to them about our product, and we got a lot of feedback about what it is that they thought was good and what are some of the aspects that they thought we needed to improve. Some of the aspects included sizing. You know, in Europe, the sizing of products are a lot smaller than in Australia. And in America, they're even bigger again. So we had to create then the product that suits that particular market. Also in color, you know, we produce white furniture. And if we look at the market sector in Australia, probably only 20 to 30% of the market is actually destined for our colors. So we talked to the furniture retailers, we talked to the selling agents. I spent a lot of time scouring retailers themselves to see what they were selling. We reverted to e-commerce to see what was going through. So over a process of time, we got a good landscape, and we felt very comfortable about our pricing, about the quality of our product and the designs. So what we did was then we started importing a limited range of those products. The last thing we wanted to do was to import a large quantity of product to find out that it didn't work, because then once you spend and invested all that money, it becomes a very, very big problem to actually sell your product when it's not destined for the market. So we were confident and we saw our sales grow. However, we were dealing with retailers. We didn't actually talk to our end customers. We weren't talking to the people that were buying our furniture. So we wanted to really understand again who that customer was. So we created our own e-commerce site. And that way we were able to then interface and get immediate feedback from our customers about quality, about problems that we were having. And we were able then to really define who our end customer was. So if we look at the supply chain, traditionally, if you are an importer, you will go to an Indonesian supplier, you will develop your supply chain and networks, you will then get him to export, or you take the process of importing your product into Indonesia. You work through a wholesaler who will then end up moving it on to a retailer and then to the consumer. So in our case, with our company Nova Solar, we are actually the supplier, the importer, and the wholesaler. This was actually quite unique about 10 years ago when we addressed this, because we were actually investing in our own stock and having our own warehouses in Europe, our own warehouses in the US, and our own warehouses in Australia. And we were able then to supply our retailers, who then supplied the consumers. But as I said, we wanted to get closer. So we introduced an e-commerce model. So we're still doing the importing and the wholesaling, but now we're actually selling the products directly to our customers, to the end consumer. So from there, we're able to now get really good feedback around how these products and our furniture and accessories are doing. In some cases, some smaller things, you may find that there are opportunities where you can go directly from the supplier to the e-commerce, through e-commerce to the consumer. And I'm sure Emmanuel will probably touch on some of these aspects about these opportunities. But at the end of the day, we must always recognize that there are regulations around import, and you will need to have some business, you'll need to have some entity to actually import the product into Australia to adhere to the regulations. So this is just a screenshot very quickly I'd like to share from Google Analytics. And this is the sort of information, very basic on the screen here. It goes very much in depth, but we're able to get that sort of information. So if we're looking here, we can see typically in the center of the screen that 80% of our customers are female. They're the housewives. And typically they are ranging from being 35 to around 55 years of age. So immediately we can actually see who our target audience is, who are we actually talking to. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see then there's a breakout of where the locations of our users actually are. So we have 126,000 users in New South Wales, and out of that, 116,000 are actually in Sydney. So we see that from an oversight that the majority of our business lies in New South Wales and Victoria, and primarily in Sydney and Melbourne. So immediately I can see that our market, our total customer, our target customer base, and this is what we use for future products, are based in those capital cities and to those particular people. I can even see in terms of what they call top channels, where my e-commerce is coming from. Paid search is like Google ads. So all those ads that you get when you're searching Google, those are the sorts of things that we pay for, and that's where we generate our revenue. And again, our market research shows that if we spend and allocate business advertising budgets to those particular areas, we get a certain return on our advertising, and that's really important when you're doing your running your business. So just as a final conclusion, I wanted to bring everybody aware to the fact that the relationship between Australia and Indonesia has never been so strong. However, the relationship is what we call very undercooked. And this is the area that I do a lot of business in my consulting, is helping Australian businesses get connected. As you can see here, Australian and Indonesian exports to Australia grew, but it peaked in 2011. It was around 5.5 billion. And since then, over the past 10 years, it's been on a steady decline. Why is that? Well, Australian business has been focusing a lot on buying products from China. And so Indonesia's had a very difficult time in terms of promoting its products here in Australia because of that competition. The little light at the end of the tunnel is the fact that actually in 2020, last year, the trade the imports increased, which is a good news, because that's showing that there is a tendency now for Australian business to start looking towards Indonesian suppliers to provide goods and services again. So my last thing is for everybody to open the opportunities. Think global. Those who've spoken to me before know that I'm a strong proponent around the IASEPA and how it encourages both Indonesian and Australian business to be partners on a global stage. We know that here in Australia, we have great designs, we have great innovation, but sometimes our manufacturing processes are too expensive for a global market. So we can combine our competitive advantages from both Indonesia and Australia. And my good friend Tom Lembong, who was the former chair of BKPM, came up with the coin, an economic powerhouse. That is that if Indonesia and Australia combine forces, we can become an economic powerhouse. So when you think of trade from Indonesia to Australia, or Indonesian products to Victoria and Tasmania, absolutely, this is an opportunity. But don't forget that there is a global market for products. So maybe if you're designing products for the Australian market, you may find that they are also applicable for other markets, maybe from America or in Europe. And hence, Indonesia becomes then a strong partner for manufacturing and distributing. So use your market research so that you can define that partnership, and then you'll find that the successes will come through. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. And now I'll hand you back to Jade for any questions that you may have now or after Emmanuel's presentation. Thank you, Jade. Handing back to you.
Thanks, Peter. Very informative. I did listen, and it was it was good. It was really, really good. So I'm inviting the audience, if you have any questions, please do put it in the chat. Peter, we do have a question for you from Bayu. He asks, in general, how is the market taste in Australia? For example, does the Australian market prefer light or dark colors, aesthetic or functional items?
Thanks for the question. Yes. So in a nutshell, Australian market is split between darker and lighter timbers or colours on furniture. Australians do prefer to have a natural timber look. They do prefer timber as opposed to laminated or processed products. So generally the trend is in terms of lighter products is better here in Australia than say in America or in particular. Yeah. So, and especially in Indonesia, traditional furniture a lot of people have tried to import traditional design furniture from Indonesia and failed dismally, partly due to quality, but due to the fact that most Australians don't like those sorts of furnitures for their homes. So you really do need to make sure that the designs are there. One other comment that I would like to make is that, Australia did have a very strong furniture manufacturing industry that got pretty well eradicated because of cheaper imports coming from China. And unfortunately, consumers gravitated to that, and a lot of Australian furniture manufacturers closed. And I did try and speak to quite a number of them about saying that there's still life. You don't need to close your furniture company. You can actually manufacture your designs in Indonesia, and you'll probably find that those designs would be well accepted in other markets. Some markets that you've never done before, because you could never export from Australia because you were too expensive. But manufacturing in Indonesia means that now you have a competitive advantage and you can sell your Australian designs overseas. So those are sorts of those opportunities that I still see are existing, not just for furniture, but for a range of different industry sectors from Australia and Indonesia.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I hope by that answers your question. Another question from Melanie. She asks, during the pandemic times, how are the regulations for imported products? Do you know what kind of products are needed the most by Australians? Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Melanie. I don't see that there's been any hiccups in terms of the regulations causing due to COVID. So there's been no stop. In actual fact, our e-commerce site has done extremely well over the past 12 months for the simple reason that people can't go to traditional retail stores and are buying products online. So I would say that if we look at the statistics, you will probably find that sales of products through e-commerce have done extremely well. All the e-commerce sites in Australia are doing well. And in particular, also e-commerce sites in Indonesia, I might say, with Bukalapak and Tokopedia in particular, they've done so all around. I think commerce continues to do. However, one problem that has been created due to COVID is logistics. Shipping has been hit very hard. Primarily due to the fact that last year a lot of, especially out of China, a lot of factories stopped producing, and so that created a glut, and a lot of shipping companies took their ships off the water. So currently, if you want to import products from Indonesia to Australia, you will probably find that the shipping costs are approximately 2 to 2.5 times more expensive than they were pre-COVID. So that would be probably the main effect of COVID is the effect on logistics costs.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question from Alfiaza. What do you suggest for the online tools for market analysis, considering that I'm a starter?
Good. This is not an area of speciality, so I'm going to revert again to some of the tools that we've used in the past. So if you're doing e-commerce, definitely Google Analytics is the ones that we rely upon. A lot of the e-commerce sites that you can use to promote your products and services do have inbuilt analytics and tools for market research. So, typically eBay is a site that a lot of people gravitate to initially. Before you develop a full-blown e-commerce site yourself, you can probably use some of these intermediary e-commerce sites, and they also provide then some inbuilt data. You can also go to online market research companies. They also have a lot of access to the tools that you probably need, and then they can also then give you the specific information around your product or your service in that particular market sector that you're working.
Great. And we have a question from Diana. Generally, to conduct a market survey is expensive. How to empower UMKM to afford to pay a market survey so that their export to Australia can fit the target market?
Yes, again, absolutely correct. You know, market research consultants or companies are expensive. So there again, I can only recommend that you utilize the online networks. So again, utilizing going online, seeing what people are selling. You go through the range of different e-commerce companies and businesses. Alternatively, you can then also, if you're in Indonesia and you want to connect with Australian companies, you can go through the chambers of commerce. They can also then point you through to companies that will be in your particular market sector. Another good research resource is actually the freight forwarders, because they are also quite knowledgeable about what companies are importing and what products from which areas. So they will also understand who the importers are, but they will also understand and give you some references about particular wholesaling companies or distributors here in Australia that can help facilitate that market research or that information that you need to make some decisions on.
Awesome. I'll ask 2 more questions. One of them is from Indra. Let's say I have found supplier in Indonesia and buyer at Australia. How about the custom clearance in Australia? Is it possible to have a forwarder from Indonesia sort it all out, the logistics and custom clearance in Australia?
Typically, Indra, sorry, thanks for the question, Indra. Typically, no, but it depends on the product, you know. So if you were to use DHL, for example, they'll do all the customs clearance and everything for you. But if you're bringing in a container of product, you will need to have an Australian company, particularly around 2 aspects. One is quarantine, and secondly is tax. Now, every time you import product into Australia, you're going to have to pay the GST tax, much the same as what you do in Indonesia. Every time we import products into Indonesia, we have to pay the VAT. So it's pretty well across the board in all countries. So depending on what sort of product that you have, I would say most of the time you will need to have an Australian company receive the products. However, if there are smaller items, you can use the services of FedEx or DHL to be able to bring that product in. And as I said, potentially then you can sell your product from Indonesia directly to potentially a consumer here in Australia.
And we have a short question from Betha. How important is it to analyze the competitors for the success of your product in the market?
Thanks, Beth, for the question. It's important. It's not vital. The important thing is that if you do want to compete with customers, if you have a product that is going to be competitive, then you just need to make sure. My recommendation is to make sure that you have a competitive advantage in terms of possibly pricing or in quality. Or in service. Now, customer service is something that we didn't talk about, but that's also a business killer in as much that if you don't get customer service right, you will find very quickly that that your business will suffer. But that's not due to market research. That's just purely bad management and bad implementation. So it's important to understand what your competitors are doing. It's important to understand what they're doing so that you can find a space for your product. But I wouldn't say that if there are lots of competitors there, it's a no-brainer for you not to go ahead. You just need to make sure that your strategic planning and business planning around that product, you're going to find where your niche is in that competitive market.
And last question is from Septi. She says, understanding the whole supply chain to Australian market could be really overwhelming, especially for a startup. What do you suggest for a small business to start importing from Indonesia?
Look, a small business starting up, I would strongly recommend that if you find that you've got a product, you've done some preliminary market research that indicates that it can sell very well, I would say try and test the market. Try and test your business model by bringing in a small or a limited number of quantity and try and get some initial sales going. You know, if not understanding your product, I don't understand keeping in mind what sort of product that you'd be looking at, you'd want to be starting to talk to the on-sellers or the end consumers. But at the end of the day, business is business. You can try and smell it, you can probably try and taste it, you can look at it, but at the end of the day, unless you eat it, then you don't know how good it's going to taste. So you can try as much as you can to get the market research to support your decisions, but at the end of the day, business is business, and we try and mitigate all the risks around doing that business. But at the end of the day, you're just going to have to, if you feel confident, give it a shot, but make sure you limit the amount of investment that you've got there, so that if it doesn't work right, you haven't lost a lot of money.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Peter. Now I'm going to pass it off to Emmanuel for his presentation.
Thank you, Jade. Let me just share my screen, which is, tell me if I'm showing my screen.
Yep.
Yep. I have to stop, sorry.
Oh.
So I'll do that again. Okay, are we good?
Yep.
Cool. All right, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all. Good to see many familiar faces from the Indonesian Consulate, Ibu Muni, Pak Bayu, Ibu Rati, and Peter Craven, who is a very long-time member of the Australia-Indonesia Business Council, Tasmania. Also, I saw some fellow friends from Diaspora Victoria, Ibu Diana, Pak Harry, welcome, Pak Jeffrey, Ibu Nika, and also Pak Yapid is here. I don't know if any more joined since I saw the list. And also Jade Lee, our moderator, whom I've had the opportunity to work together a few years back in AIBC. And thank you so much for the introduction. And if you want to know more about me, just go to my LinkedIn profile and connect with me there. Certainly awesome to be here, and thank you for the privilege to contribute my expertise to this business coaching series. Now, I will post one question that I want you to vote on. So you need a second gadgets to if you want to participate. And and the winner is gonna get some prize from the Indonesian Consulate. No, I'm just kidding. There's no prize. I want to make this as interactive as possible, so you don't fall asleep when I talk. The issue when going later is people tends to absorb so much from the first speaker, and second speaker they just fall asleep. So I will soon post one question, and if you have your second device, go to www.menti.com and type in the code displayed there. I'm pretty sure it's on. I'm not sure if it's. I think it's working already. And I will post the link throughout and in the next few slides. And the question is based from what Pak Peter was talking about previously. In fact, I have the same slide, but I just want to test Pak Peter whether everyone is listening. And what are the top reasons of the startups' global failures? And just rank that into from your phone. To make it easy, I've listed all the top 10. You don't have to go through all of that. Just list them in the order that you think is correct. Okay, so now to put in context what I'm about to show you while you're doing your voting, and what Jade has mentioned in the introduction, this is the kind of work that I do day to day, helping companies and startup with business modeling. We have the Strategizer virtual masterclass, which was attended by some participants earlier this year. And the other one that I'm working at the moment is with the climate KIC Europe, based in Cyprus, Malta, and Portugal, on I think this is about 6 months long engagement on climate change startups. And these are the teams that we work with. Now, today we will be discussing two things, right? Business modeling and principles of innovation. So in the past few weeks, if you've been into this business coaching series, we have heard presentation on ISCPA, food business, Peter e-commerce, and so on. Mostly what Australia and Indonesia commonly trade in. But in this presentation, I want you to open up your mind and think beyond the traditional goods and services that we're familiar with, because innovation is not going to happen without the out-of-the-box thinking. Just one disclaimer, innovation is hard, even for Fortune 500 companies. But where you and I are different, we are young. I just turned 17 yesterday, right? And we haven't been in the industry. No, I'm not 17. We haven't been in the industry for so long. So we have a lot more room to move. Whereas more established and big companies, the stake is higher and it's more challenging and more risky to innovate. So what I'm going to do now is I will give you the tool that people around the world use for innovation. So I'm going to crunch 3 days worth of workshop and 6 months worth of coaching session in 15 minutes. So make sure you don't take your eyes off the screen and pay real good attention, right? Okay, I hope you are all voted. But just before I go into the results, if you've been in the last few sessions in the past 2 weeks, you will see multiple speakers discussing what you need to do to start your import business in Australia. And also what we see today from Pak Peter. Now make sure you took plenty of notes, because trust me, after I think 9 years I've been in this business, you still need to know a lot of that. And what I've discovered through my life as a business coach is I've seen great businesses, great business owners lost money in the hundreds of thousands, even millions. And in some of our partner coaches, they've seen billions of dollars lost in business. So your business model really matters. So let's quickly go into the poll and see if they are correct. What do you think, Pak Peter? Almost.
Almost, yeah.
Almost, yeah.
Almost,
So
yeah.
good. A lot of people are listening, so very happy with that. Let's go back to my presentation. Yep. So where me and Pak Peter get the data from is basically this company called CB Insights, where they track down year after year of the list of reason of startup failures. Now, where we talk about startups, this is also a good proxy to a rank of business failures, right? Now, the first reason is have changed a little bit since the pandemic. So obviously, a lot of people have run out of cash since the pandemic. But what I want to draw your attention to is the subsequent ones, the second one below, because these are the list, the order of the list doesn't really change much year after year. So first is no market needs, got outcompeted, flawed business model, regulatory challenges, which is not exactly in a business model, but something we always address with our engagements, pricing, teams, product timing, poor products, which Peter has discussed previously. All of this has a lot to do with your business model. So, Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until they got punched in the mouth, right? So business is like that. So where I am with my fellow coaches at Strategizer, we're encouraged not to think so much of planning. Not that planning is not important, but we started to work on what we call iterative business design. So what this means for many of us is your business design doesn't end when you launch your business or product. And when we talk about business design, we always refer to the notion of business model design, right? Just make that clear. So we always go through this constant iteration of designing and testing, designing and testing. And we coach our clients using the concept of napkin sketches. Even if it has been a physical workshop, we would hand out actual napkins for participants to draw their business model on the napkin to create sketches. And the reason for that is a napkin is cheap and you can easily throw away. And that's the same thing with when you are in the design stage of your business model. You should not fall in love with your idea. You need to test and validate until you find proof that your business model works, and then invest more money into it. So what is a business model? Pak Kunchoro have mentioned this a little bit from his opening remark. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of business modeling, we define it as a model that describes the rationale on how organization creates, deliver, and capture value. Now, what I'm about to tell you is now becoming a global standard, a shared language, if you like, in companies around the world when it comes to discussion about business model. Now, I've spoken to many people, many business owners about business modeling, and what I discover on a personal basis is probably 99% of time, even CEOs of big companies, they don't talk about business model at the level that I will be talking to you about here. And later, I will tell you why we describe the business model in terms of the building blocks, which comes later. But whether you're a small business or a Fortune 500 companies, which what this model is mostly used for, these building blocks exist in one way or another. Only the scales of its existence and applications differs from size to size. If you're a smaller business, the scope of it may be small, and sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. But as your business grows bigger, the blocks are started to become more obvious. So what kind of building blocks am I talking about? Strategizer outlined the 9 building blocks that made up a business model in their first book, The Business Model Generation, written by Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pigneur a few years ago. Now, the 9 building blocks as stated in the books are customer segment, value proposition, channels, customer relationships, revenue streams, key resources, key activities, key partnerships, and cost structures. Now, if this slide is overloading your brain right now, don't worry too much. You can simply Google all of this stuff because they're practically all over the internet, right? Alternatively, if you love podcasts, I have a quick podcast interview with the person behind this business model, Alexander Osterwalder, and you just listen to the podcast. My podcast is called Biz Talk with Emmanuel. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. I'm not going to discuss this individually, what these blocks means, but suffice to say that out of all these 9 building blocks, we got the business model canvas. So the business model canvas is now becoming a global standard of business model discussions in companies around the world. Now, this canvas is a visual representation of what a business model looks like. It also provides a shared language when talking about business model issues and other things related to business model. So to some of us who's new to this may look complicated, and it will if you try to swallow this whole in 5 minutes. But the essence of it is really simple. I want you to think of the canvas like a theater. We call this epicenters. When starting a business, I had many coach put too much emphasis, or the only emphasis, on getting the target market right or your niche market right. Well, it is extremely important. What we discover, a business success, your startup success, can come from any of the epicenters, what we call the business model patterns. So the business model patterns can originate in the front stage of the canvas, otherwise known as the customer-driven pattern, the backstage or resource-driven, or the profit formula, which is finance-driven. Now, front stage patterns are all about making radical changes of who is targeted and how value is delivered. Backstage patterns are all about how the value itself is created. Where profit formula patterns are about is making changes in how profits are made in terms of revenues and costs. Now, to show how this works, I want to discuss a case study of Tesla. Now, I'm showing this not because it's a technology company, and later I'll explain why when we talk about innovation, we don't talk about technology innovation, but we talk about business innovation. Now, Tesla, more than an awesome company, is really a good example of what a great business model is. Now, Tesla is a case study that we at Strategizer discussed quite extensively. Just to give a bit of background, Tesla was the first to see a significant opportunity in focusing performance at electric vehicle market. It's founded in July 2003 as Tesla Motors by two people named Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Now, most of you probably relate the name of Tesla to Elon Musk, but he was not part of the original founders, but he contributed most of the fundings in the early days. And later in 2008, he was named CEO of Tesla. So in 2008, Tesla launched their first generation car called Tesla Roadster, which Elon Musk actively oversaw the design, but not on the operational level. In 2012, Tesla stopped the production of the Roadster and started launching its second generation car, the Model S. And in 2017, Tesla Motors shortened the name to only Tesla and launched the Model 3. Now, I know Tesla has grown into other sectors and not just cars, but for this webinar, we will only talk about how they unlocked the electric car market back in 2003. So right now, what I'd like to do is to take you to the Strategizer platform, the one that we use to in our engagement to visualize how the Tesla business model looks like on the business model canvas. So here I am in the demo workspace, and I will bring in a canvas I have prepared. And let me drag it here and lock it so it doesn't run away. Now let's start with the Tesla value proposition. What is their value proposition? It's high performance electric vehicles. And obviously with high performance vehicle, it's not cheap. So they decided to target only wealthy customers. Now, to make this works, even wealthy customer needs something that is affordable. And this is where their free supercharging station comes in. And then how do they distribute their value proposition? Through direct sales. And obviously, if you've been to high-end shopping centers like I think Chadstone, you will see the Tesla shops. And I think Doncaster is the same. I can't remember. But also, they need to have a series of supercharger network to make their business model work, to make the value proposition works. And how do they build relationship? Obviously, with a massive following and people who love their brand so much, wealthy consumers mainly, they have a love mark brand. They have a massive following in that. And how do they make money? And obviously, free charging costs nothing. But most of their income comes from car sales, direct car sales. Now, let's see what does it take for a Tesla to make this business model works. And this is the part where I see a lot of business fails because they just see, oh, I want to target wealthy consumers, right? But they don't see what it takes for the other part of the business model to work, which is in the early stage, Tesla relies on technology partners to provide a lot of the technology that they were supplying to the consumers. They also need manufacturing plants to produce their own vehicles, and they need a supercharger infrastructure. They have to build this because back then there's no one existing to the level that they wanted. And also part of Tesla business model is they have a strong brand. So brand is considered as a key resource that people use to make the business model works. But what other activities? So more than a car company, and this is where Tesla is different. A lot of people see a car company is making car. That's their main job. But more than a car company, Tesla is also a technology company. And in the center of the business model is that their software. So Tesla make it a point to develop their own software. And one of the key activities that they're doing all the time is developing software. And also their unique car design and manufacturing also demands a constant activities, a part of their key activities. And their brand building, since they consider brand as their key resource, they need to actively engage in brand building activities. And also their cost structure, they have marketing and branding costs. The supercharger station also costs money with the maintenance, and also the design and development of manufacturing costs. So this is what we see in the early days of Tesla as how is what they use, how they visualize themselves and this is what they use to penetrate the electric car market. So let me switch back to my slides. Am I back? I think I'm back. Okay. Now, before I finish, I want to leave you with a principle that all we innovation coach live by. And that is, whenever we talk about innovation, we're not talking about technological innovation, as I mentioned earlier. We're specifically talking about business innovation. And this discussion is not limited to within our coaching community. Even Jade mentioned before, I'm part of the Blue Ocean Strategy Australia. We also talk about value innovation. So that's nothing to do with technology, although a lot of technology companies use this principle of innovation to grow their company. But it is more of a less a technology terms, more of a business terms. And a good example of what I always use, I'm sorry if you heard this saying me before and you got sick of it, is with the Nintendo Wii. Nintendo Wii is an innovation utilizing existing, even inferior product to create better value proposition for a new market. We have seen too many good technology fails because of bad business design. Likewise, when we talk about R&D in a company settings, we're not talking about technology R&D. We're talking about business R&D. So what this means to you is, even if you're non-tech, say accountant or a chef, you can still create a business innovation. Now, I use the example of Tesla, not only because it's a good case study to show the power of thinking business model, but also there's an opportunity for you all to start your import business on the electric vehicle sector. Now, some of you are right now are thinking, no way, I'm not Tesla. I don't have technology background. Well, this is where you need to be innovative, right? ISIPA opens up a massive door of opportunity for Indonesia to push electric vehicle products to Australia. Why? Because ISIPA adopts a 0% tariff to electric car import. Now, this data is provided to me by my good friend, Pak Agung Wicaksono, the trade attaché in Indonesian Embassy in Canberra. So if you're asking about more details about this, I probably won't be able to answer you. But I'm sure Ibu Muni and the team from the Indonesian consulate probably have some good information about this. Furthermore, it is also expected for Indonesia to export up to 1.1 million units of electric vehicle to Australia. And the Indonesian government is actively developing this sector and expect by 2022, Indonesia will be able to produce its own electric vehicle. And they're also actively pursuing discussion with Australia to make trade in electric vehicle easier. So you've heard in previous weeks that ISIPA unlocks a bunch of opportunity. Well, this is one of them. But for those of you who thought the doing business in tech industry is going to cost you a heart attack, I want to show you, and I will close with this, a video by my friend Nick Himovich from London about Mr. Beast Burger and how this social media influencer launched 300 restaurants across the US overnight. For that, I will switch to a video. If I can find my video.
Mr. Beast is second on the list of Forbes' highest paid YouTube stars. He's just launched a fast food brand called Mr. Beast Burger and opened up 300 locations overnight. To put that into context, it took McDonald's nearly 6 years to do pretty much the same thing. So how did Mr. Beast do it so fast? To answer this question, we need to look back at the company behind Mr. Beast Burger. Virtual Dining Concepts was founded by hospitality entrepreneur Robert Earl, who has a string of restaurant chains across the US. What he realised was that many restaurant owners, like himself, had spare capacity in their kitchens. So he saw an opportunity to apply a business model that hadn't been used before in his industry. Let's use the business model canvas to see what that looks like. Virtual Dining Concepts' first customer segment is the mass market, or to be specific, the fans or followers of celebrities and influencers like Mr. Beast, for example. The value proposition for the mass market is fast food created by their favourite influencers. And virtual dining concepts reaches them through the social media channels of the celebrities and influencers that they work with. For revenue, virtual dining concepts takes a cut of fast food sales from the end consumer. Now, celebrities and influencers are the channel to reach the mass market, but celebrities and influencers are also a customer segment themselves for virtual dining concepts. And the value proposition for celebrities and influencers is being able to monetize their audience. Celebrity account managers and agencies are the channels that virtual dining concepts uses to then reach those celebrities. On the back end, the key activity is outsourcing fast food production to their key partner, restaurant owners across the country with spare capacity in their kitchens. But what's essential for this model to work is they have celebrity brands as a key resource. So rather than virtual dining concepts investing heavily in promoting the restaurants by itself, it offers the celebrities a virtual celebrity restaurant brand. So Mr. Beast has his own burger chain, Mariah Carey has her own line of cookies, and Tiger has his own chicken bites. Virtual dining concepts then creates demand through the social media channels of these celebrities and influencers. Of course, this all produces a very different type of cost structure, as they have to pay the celebrities licensing fees. So there you go, that's the story of how Mr. Beast Burger became one of the fastest growing business models in the fast food industry. But it does raise the question, why didn't an established fast food company like McDonald's do it first? Well, that's because most incumbents have a successful business model that they're focused on exploiting. They aren't set up to explore new models, or at least they're not yet. If you found this video useful, why not give it a like and subscribe to Strategizer's YouTube channel for more content just like this.
Okay, so that's a wrap from me. Now, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. QR code is there. Yeah, so thank you very much for the opportunity, and yeah, happy to answer some questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Emmanuel. Really cool presentation. Love the video ending. Yeah, so we just have a question from Novita. What is the time frame to measure whether our business model works or not? What exit plan should be prepared in case it doesn't work?
That is a very broad question. The answer to that is it depends on case by case. We usually like to see where people stand at the. I'm talking about engagement. At the beginning of the engagement, we see where people stand, and we evaluate different aspects, different data, information, and then make decision from there. So exit plan, so far, a lot of our engagement, a lot of our project, they don't want to exit the business because they love it so much. You can see if you go to my LinkedIn, I share a lot of about a successful business model. They just keep on creating, and just one I should point out, one case study that was a client of Strategizer but not mine, is an outlet baby care. So Outlet initially started as a business modeling competition, and now they have just launched their first IPO. So I think it's more of a bigger question than something that we can just answer in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Avita. We got a really specific one from Jeffrey. He is an IT consulting and plans to import Indonesian developers as independent contractors in providing services in functional database systems. The competitive advantage is cost effective due to lower development costs. What are the options of business model type and structure for me? Joint venture? What about the taxation matters?
That's probably more from the administrative side, but I can talk about. I mean the what did you say, the business structure, yeah, the business entity. But what I can talk about competitive is we see competitive advantage as the bigger business model. So not just so much about how much costs you're delivering. because what we discover from our clients that people actually less worry about costs nowadays. They do still consider cost as a big thing, but where we think is $100 is expensive, we find that people are willing to pay $1,000 easily if there are certain things existing in a business model. So we don't just ballpark cost effective, but what is cost effective means. So it's, again, we look at the higher level on the business model. If you're charging $1,000 and to deliver $1 million worth of consulting of results, then I would suggest to up your price a lot more. But at the same time, I've also seen people that, especially IT company, because of the limitation of their skill. When I say skill set, I'm talking about the organization skill set, yeah, not the individual skill set. Then they can only achieve a certain level, and then we look at, okay, so if you're not competitive enough, what are the value that you can actually deliver to your customer? Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Manuel. Hopefully, Jeffrey, you got some answer from that. Just a friendly reminder to complete the survey in the chat that Lukman just put in. Is there any more questions for Emmanuel? Feel free to pop it in the chat.
Or Peter.
Or Peter.
Just
yeah,
relieve
Peter.
the pressure a little bit from me. So share the pressure. I'm happy for everybody to connect with me. I don't know about Peter. Does Peter can say for himself. If you have any question, just send me a message through LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer that. Are you waiting for something?
Can I just make a quick comment to that last question from Jeffrey? There are, and I'm involved with an Australian software developer here in Australia that actually outsource a lot of their number crunching, IT crunching to an Indonesian outsource. So that seems to be a very good model, is to develop an outsourcing and then connect with Australian IT developers here in Australia. So you don't actually need to set up a business in Australia, but you can connect with them and then they can outsource a lot of the work back into Indonesia.
Just a question from Alvin, either of you. Which is more important, front stage, backstage, or profit in the Canvas model?
If we can choose, it's always good to start with your customer, with your front stage. But what we found, especially a more established company, that is not always the case. So a lot of the people that we work with have an existing infrastructure, have existing key resources, or a way to monetize their service. So we consider how to best shift their business model, what we call the business model pattern shift into a better one. But if you're just starting, always focus on the front stage. I don't know, Pak Peter, you might have some suggestion.
Thanks, Manuel. It also depends what, now if I put my investor hat on, what are we investing in? So if we're typically doing investment in infrastructure projects, then it's around the infrastructure. You're investing long term in the infrastructure, not so much on, say, the cash flow or the finances. But then there are other businesses that you're investing in purely because that business is generating a lot of cash flow. So when we talk about business valuations, we obviously look at the business model, and nothing can move away from your interaction with customers. I mean, you live with, you are based on clients and customers. But if you're saying property, you're looking at the development, and so who your end customer actually is. So I would say the answer to that question is depends a lot on what sort of business that you're actually running.
Great. Okay. I think that's it for all the questions. It appears everyone's just thanking you for your time today. Just some quick announcements. We do have another session next Saturday, 21st of August. Yeah, just on here. That's all the information there. And I believe there will be a networking event the following Saturday, the 28th of August. So yeah, don't forget to register for those sessions. So thank you all for attending today. I hope you enjoyed listening to Emmanuel and Peter for some hot tips and tricks. And we'll see you next time. Oh, do we need a photo? Oh, no.
No, I think
that's it.
We had, yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for the opportunity. Hope we can talk again.
Okay. Mbak Jet, may I have the floor for a while, please? Yeah. Yes. Actually, I just would like to invite all the participants to attend the week 4. I think this is among very important topic besides today's topic. Today's topic is also very important. The next week we'll be discussing about general overview on how to make a business contract. I think this is very important to make sure that our business run well. So the next session will be discussing about why we need to make a contract, and then what are the essential elements to make a contract. Of course, this is overview because I think to make a contract, we have to consult the lawyer. And secondly, next week we also would like to talk about the cargo and warehouse. I think this is very important for the importer to understand about the cargo issue and also right logistical partner. And then the last week, the week 5, we will be discussing about digital transformation in business. And also this is the next week will be very important session because we will give the opportunity for all the participants to make some kinds of networking after we finish with the session. Thank you, Jet.
Okay, terima kasih everyone. I hope you have a beautiful sunny day in Melbourne.
Thank you.
Hati-hati.
Thank you. See you.
Terima kasih.
Take care.